Welcome to this week's Muslim Street. This is an abbreviated program today. And as we at the Muslim Street begin to set up a series dealing with what we are here at the Muslim Street are terming Afrocentric propaganda versus Islam. And I'll get to it in a minute while do a little house cleaning. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. You can also find us across all social media, particularly on our Facebook page for any kind of updates. So over the next, excuse me, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we will do 3 to 4 separate episodes where we bring on historical scholars on both sides of this issue to discuss their research as it relates to Pan-Africanism. I don't want to call. Let me back up. Pan-Africanism as a political philosophy and a construct is not what we'll be debating. We'll be debating Afrocentricity versus Islam, which you can find inside of the Pan-African movements historically, but you can also find Muslims who are Pan-Africanists too. So I just want to make sure that we have some clarity there, that you can be both, as I am, a Pan-Africanist and a Muslim. And there are others. And prominently, I will drop some of those names as over here in the next few minutes as we set up. Again, what I think is a topic that's been floating around on social media. And one of the reasons why I wanted to embark on this on both sides is to give clarity to the audience. That way, when you are scrolling through social media or the internet, which has become, unfortunately, your new library. It's not a library. It's not. All right. It's not a book. It's just a lazy way for you to fool yourself into thinking that you're some kind of intellectual because you know how to point and click and ask Professor Google and Professor AI what you should be getting out of a library. And most of you don't even have library cards. And they literally give those away free. All right. Anyhow, and which tells me a lot about how you got your degrees. Yeah, you went through college. You did nothing but cheat and plagiarize on your tests. Got in your little dorm rooms, your little fraternities and sorority sisters and brothers, and y'all worked out little cheat sheets and writing notes on your hand, so that you can try to outguess the professor and the 10 or 12 questions that he's going to have on that midterm or that final examination. It's pathetic. I don't even know why you even enrolled in college if he was going to cheat. You weren't present for any of the ongoing intellectual and academic debates that took place during the class sessions. You sat in the back of the class because you didn't read the material. Yeah, I know you. I know you because I saw you. I went through college, So anyhow, enough about that. But you need to do better. And you can kind of redeem yourself. You ain't got to tell anybody else. You ain't got to tell yourself, right? You can continue to lie to yourself, but you should go get a library card and check some books out and get back to the old school way of learning. Reading is fundamental. I remember they used to say that. However, to this debate on there's a lot of raging propaganda going on social media, and the only way to quell that is to create content where the large audience can refer to, reference for true scholarship. And keyword there is scholarship. Keyword there is academia. All right. Keyword is citing your research, through bibliography and footnote. Past historians also citing their research. It's the only way we're going to pile through any subject matter. Do you have your research? and some attractive sister or some handsome brother coming across the internet who sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but really doesn't, and he has 1,000 clicks on it, and you go repeat that stuff, you only sound as stupid because you're not as attractive or handsome as the one that you clicked on. You can't make this stuff up. All right, so Afrocentric propaganda versus Islam, a series of episodes. We're going to do 3 or 4 of them. We're going to be bringing scholars on from both sides of this subject who seem to own both sides of this issue, and we're going to hammer it out. Again, I just wanted to use this short session as to set this up. And how would we be setting this up? We can look at the documentation from scholars from Dr. Du Bois and J.A. Rogers, who spoke into these subject matters. We know that some of Dr. Du Bois's work analyzing the Arab role in East Africa and the trans-Sahara trade in his piece, The World in Africa. Also, J.A. Rogers documented this sort of multiracial integration and Afro-Arab histories in his famous piece, Sex and Race. Go read some of these books. Dr. Chancellor Williams, his book in the mid to late 1970s, Destruction of the Black Civilization, is peppered with propaganda on Muslim societies. Why? Dr. Chancellor Williams was a Christian. He, was pushing that stuff forward as he engages history on Muslim societies. I'm not saying that his critique is terribly weighed in that direction. He has some good critical history, but those who know, once you read his works, then you will see it. Also, read the works of Dr. Khaled Tariq El-Mansour, who wrote 30 books on the Afro-Arab. Again, Dr. Khaled El-Mansour, a African here in America, scholar, passed away, I think, somewhere in the mid-2015, had dedicated some of his life's work on this issue of the Afro-Arab. We're going to be talking about his works. Been reading the works of Sheikh Anta Diop, who wrote Civilization and Barbarism, a Senegalese academic. The works of Dr. Yosef Ben Yanakanan, who was very critical of the Arabs. We'll be diving into Dr. Ben's works. And 2 things about Dr. Ben, a Pan-African scholar of the last century, one of the foremost Pan-African scholars of the last 50 years. If you read his work, he donated his entire library upon his death to the Nation of Islam and Minister Louis Farrakhan. The second thing that we want to point out is that Dr. Ben, while he was in aged care toward the end of his life, was attending Juma prayer. That is the Friday prayers of the Muslims in New York City. That's well documented. However, does not to assuage his heavy critique on the African origin of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? A heavy critique, which you should read, all right? You should also read Dr. Benz's piece, We the Black Jews, over a 500-page critique and historical flow, understanding the fluidity of where did that religion come from, all right? And that'll get you out of some of these Afrocentric pundits using this European Oriental phrase, the Abrahamic religions, in order to connect Islam with Christianity and then Judaism, you're not getting away with that one. And we will debunk all that. We will also bring these anti-religious perspectives, also known as atheists, as they attack any kind of a black black religious experience inside the context of Islam and primarily Christianity, because you have to look at when you talk about Black Americans post European slave trade, whether you find them in South America, Central America, or here in North America, overwhelmingly a Christian. The number's not even close, exceeding 96, 97, 98% in some cases. And that's really what happens in the United States. And if anybody doubts that, just take a ride on any Sunday morning or Wednesday morning for that fact. Any heavily populated black city, and you will find church after church after church after church. You won't find mosque after mosque after mosque after mosque, or temple, meaning the Hebrews and Black Hebrews who primarily don't emerge at least as a relative discussion until the early 70s, late 1960s, with, of course, Rabbi Ben Ami on the south side of Chicago, who founded the original African Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, and they eventually settled in Dimona, Israel, where they still are today. So we'll be diving into this not from an emotional perspective, but from an academic and historical perspective. Leave your feelings at home. That's going to be the message before we dive into this. It's the only way that we're going to, meaning that if you have your facts, if you have your academia in the context of history, sociology, anthropology, this is cross-disciplinarian law and instant law, then bring that, but don't bring it emotionally. Because I'm Muslim, I'm not going to get emotional about the facts of history and then, argue that down only because I'm Muslim. No, we're not here defending anything. We're defending the research. I have to get back to that mode, because what the internet and social media has created are these monologues. People whom go on their platforms and they just say whatever they want to say, and nobody is there to challenge what they say. Now, previously, if they had any of those kind of ideas, and I say previously, I'm going back to the last heyday of the Black bookstores in the early 2000s, 1990s, and of course the 1980s, and coming out of the Black Power movement in the 1960s and 70s, you had that when you showed up at some panel discussion that had 3 or 4 scholars on it, and you sitting in the audience, you better have your research before you challenge, So what the internet has done is allowed that person who didn't have any research in the back of the room to get up and say whatever he wants to say. And because it may sound good, then, So we're here to kind of debunk that, set new standards of discourse that need to be, that has to be taking place. And I've been on both sides of it. One, the current present side of receiving these monologues and going like, what did he just say? Or, that's some. And then on the other side of it, I was in those panel discussions in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. I put on some of those panel discussions where you didn't have your facts. And I've seen people stand up in the back of the room without their facts and get lit up One case in particular, back in the probably mid '80s or something like that, at the Northeast Illinois University Center for Inner City Studies, which was a sort of like a house for Pan Africanism and Pan African struggle. Shout out to Dr. Conrad Worrell, one of the founding members of the National Black United Front in 1980, who used the Center for Inner City Studies on the South Side of Chicago as a platform and a portal for Pan-African thought. And they came through there. The scholars came through there, all of them, at that time. Dr. Anderson Thompson, Dr. Smith, Dr. Yosef Ben-Yanakan, and I mentioned him, Dr. Maulana Karenga and the Cultural Nationalists. All of them came through there. Minister Louis Farrakhan, Hakeem Adabuti, Hannibal Afrique, Shule Yawatoto on the west side. All of them came through there. Steve Coakley, all of the scholars were there. Ola Minji came through there. Okay. And one in particular that I want to mention, I was at a panel discussion with Dr. Anderson Thompson, African community in Chicago, one of the foremost scholars that we had at the time, passed away maybe 5 or 6 years ago. In fact, we wrote an article on him on the Muslim Street. Find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. Dr. Anderson Thompson, along with the great Chokwe Lumumba, co-founder, Republic of New Africa, a Pan-Africanist, along with Omari El-Badali. They were lecturing and gave an extensive lecture on Malcolm and Pan-Africanism. Some young brother in the audience was with the Nation of Islam, and he stood up and he had something he wanted to say, and I'm sitting over there in the middle of the audience. It's like, oh man, he didn't say that. Well, Dr. Anderson Thompson started in on him first. And then Chokwe Lumumba later. They ate this brother alive, because you came to a lecture of scholars, and because you felt like you had something to say, internet, you're disrespecting people's research. Stop. The lifelong works because you got something to say. I remember about 10 years ago, I gave a shout out to Lance Gerv in the crowd, Ghana, and Lance Gerv show for producing the Muslim Street. And each and every week, they do a bang up job. Shout out to Lance all the way from Accra, Ghana. Why? Because that platform sits over there. And essentially goes out into Africa, where we speak to through Afro Media, somewhere around 100,000 people on this platform on a weekly basis. Shout out to Art Mobley, Dar423, for making that happen, who is a co-host on the show, and hopefully we'll be returning soon. Now, we were talking about coming to a lecture back when it was proper, and you just got something to say. We have to get out of that. And you can read the comment sections on some of these platforms. I mean, it's amazing, the disrespect of scholarship. Dr. Conrad Worrell, who passed away in the summer of 2020, founding member of the National Black United Front. And he said two things. One is he lived by this motto that didn't pause in his struggle for over 50 or 60 years. And that was that our struggle is for the minds of Black people. Our struggle is for the minds of Black people. Dr. Conrad Worrell, whose birthday actually was yesterday. Don't forget our revolutionary warrior scholars, and he will be remembered in that space. The other thing he said, as he saw the emergence of social media, He said that it has created social media an age of anti-intellectualism and anti-academia. And he was saddened by this because anybody can say anything. This is the rise of FBA ADOS. This is a scholarship to support this psyop. Just repeat. There's a page on Facebook with over 30,000 members on it. We ain't African, we Indians. Just pure ignorance. So, scholarship and academia, part of our work is to return to some normalcy around, have you done the work? You don't get to speak until you've done the work. If you take a position or a perspective and you have not done the work, it just becomes your feelings. It becomes your opinion. Nobody cares about that. At least didn't. Now anybody can say anything they want. That's cool. That's where we at, but it's not going to go unchallenged, not any further. So we'll be dealing with the context of interdisciplinary study around the interconnection between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. We'll be reviewing the work, and you will hear the works of El Jahiz, 8th century Medina scholar. Medina being the second holiest place in Islam, the house of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. El Jahiz, the number one scholar in Medina in the 8th century. We'll be dealing with his works around the superiority of the black race over the white race. This was scholarship, academia, the number one scholar in Medina at the time. We were dealing with the history of because I was talking to Lance a couple weeks ago, and I said I think part of the confusion is that in Black America we see Arabs who came from other parts of the Hijaz, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, in some cases, and they started to migrate into the United States and then find their way into the black neighborhoods around the 1980s, the 1990s, and they set up these stores, and they happen to be Muslims, some of them are not, because the original Arabs who migrated from that which is called the Middle East, that came in the early part of the last century, the 1920s, the 19 teens. In fact, about it, they're the ones, and they're not Muslims. They're Lebanese, but they're not Muslims. They're Christians, and they gain some sense of authority, and they begin to influence, not authority, and they begin to petition the United States government over 100 years ago. To classify them as white. And this is a very significant point because here you have Lebanese who are not Muslim. They're here first. These are the first Arabs basically that are here in a group. They get that passed, which means that after the United States Immigration Act in 1966 was passed, and then there's a floodgate of immigrants who started to flow into the Americas over the next 30 years. There are Arabs who are black, dark and as pretty as I am. And they have to classify themselves as white on the United States Census and on their immigration paperwork. This holds true to today. That all North Africa, and the North Africans largely aren't even Arabs. They're Amazigh. And they come in various colors. On one extreme, as dark as I am, and the other extreme, white. But the dark ones, even, in the middle, what we call peanut butter or pecan tan, they too have to classify themselves as Caucasian. Dr. Khaled Mansour, in one of his pieces, focuses in on a Nubian from a place now called Egypt, who's blacker than Lance, who produces the show. Afro out to here. This is during the 1970s, and he is arguing back and forth. And you can see a video up on YouTube, and we'll put that up, of him saying, "What do you mean? Yeah, I'm Caucasian? He looked like your Uncle Jimmy. Come on." So I say all this to say that the psychology and the image of the Arab comes from this influx that I talked about. And they set up these stores in the Black community, and we see them, and then we go, "Oh, that's them. Those are the people of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam." No, they're not. So we're gonna dive into them, where they came from, how they populated that area, even as late as during the time of the the mid to the early studies of Dr. Du Bois and J.A. Rogers. They talk about the Arab Peninsula during the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which will be the 7th century. Arabia is about 35% African. All right. And we're going to go into the history and the lineage of Prophet Muhammad to see who he is, which will take us to the lineage of Abraham. You're going to be shocked, because we need to take what's in your mind's eye about your perception of who an Arab is to get to the crust of the research. And then lastly, in the last 3 minutes I have here, lastly, I want to close this out. We'll come back next week. You'll see, just follow us on social media. We're going to run this live across social media. We're going to have the scholars, and we're going to be dealing with the facts. And the last thing I'll say about this issue is the ideology and the construct around the struggle of Pan-Africanism. And if we talk about the ones who are Afrocentric tend to be Pan-African, and their attack on Islam, which you better be factual when you're on here, because you're going to get ripped apart, right? If you don't have your facts, don't stay tuned. Anyhow, they won't even mention that Mansa Musa, purportedly the richest man in the history of the world, make Bill Gates' money look like pennies. They won't even mention the fact that he was Muslim. And we're talking 14th century Ghana. We know about his famous Hajj in 1323. They won't even mention Sheikh Anta Diop and his many works that he was Muslim. They won't even mention the political work in the context of Pan-Africanism by people like Edward Blyden, who is known as the father of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was born not on the African continent, but it was born here in the Western Hemisphere. Edward Blyden, post-slavery, emerges as a Pan-African Muslim. Not even to speak of other Pan-African leaders who are Muslim here that they can identify with over on this side of the ocean. People like Malcolm X. You want to critique Malcolm in the perspective of, Malcolm had the wrong religion? Got it. Yeah, so we're going to be diving into all of the stuff that you won't mention that we will be mentioning. The militancy of Malcolm X that formed a whole generation of revolutionaries, and he was Muslim. Yeah. So, and we will be diving into that on both sides, giving a unemotional, I hate to say dispassionate platform, only to lean to and lean into the academia that will come out of that, that can be canned and studied for future students who really want to learn about African emancipation and how can they get involved. And you cannot get involved if you're just gonna blurt out stuff that you can't that you won't even put in this historical context. Yeah. So Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Muslim. Some very good debates that I saw Dr. Khalid Muhammad do personally, as well as you can find some of his past works up on YouTube. He passed away February 2001, where he tries, and rightfully so, in the context of Islam, tries to raise the bar for people who don't know, to let us understand that the whole question of monotheism and the belief in one God is an African concept. It's not a European concept, but atheism is. It just shows that you've been overcome. If you're standing on that, so here we are, the end of my monologue, and in no way do I try to go undebated. I say bring your facts, bring your research, bring your bibliography and your footnotes, and prove us right or wrong. Debate research with research. You don't debate research with your feelings, right? Don't tell me about some Arab grocery store. He Muslim and he's selling pork. He's selling alcohol. He's selling porn. He's selling drugs at the corner store. How can you be Muslim? Hey, bro, I'm with you when you say let's go and give them 3 warnings. On the 3rd warning, we're cleaning out your store. That actually happened in 2007 by some Black Muslims in Oakland, California, who went to one of these stores and said, "You got 1 warning before we come back again. Take all of the alcohol, the porn, the pork, and stop hitting on our young sisters." He came back the next week, gave him the 2nd warning. Came back the 3rd week and cleaned that whole store out. I'm with that. Are you with it? I don't think so. So, this is where we're going with this. We want to set a standard on the internet that people can refer to and say, those were some good back and forth discussions around this issue that nobody seems to want to deal with. The Arab slave trade. Nobody wants to deal with this in an open and honest way. No one wants to deal with why in the Sudan that people look like me and Lance call themselves Arabs and will argue you down with it, but also live in a country called Sudan, which means land of the blacks, and they would tell you that with a fence pump from the 1960s. Yeah, we would deal with about all of these agencies and nuances that you don't understand because you're looking from the lens of Black-white racism under the context of white supremacy here in the West. You ain't been nowhere. I see where you're going with your passports. Even when you go to Africa with your passports, you're going there partying. Is this hotel air conditioned? You don't go into villages and live with the people. Go there and stay for 3 weeks. Wake up and do what they do every day if you want to learn the people, but you don't.
Tell them, brother.
You want to go to Ghana and get that freak on. Where the club at? 2 o'clock in the morning. You could have stayed in New York. You could have stayed in Chicago. You could have stayed in Atlanta. You know, different than these old silly rappers who ain't rapping about nothing. They have introduced Black Americans to the rest of the world. N-word this, N-word that. Bees and hoes and do-do-do-boos. Ain't rapping about nothing. Zero. Got to get that flus, though. And that Zionist control the industry. So, you go to Africa. How you go to Africa and don't come back up? Anyway. I went there and I got my name. Shut up. I've been to Africa 21 times. 19 different countries. I know what I'm talking about. I see you. What? And this wasn't Africa, but this is an example, Lance, of, and I close out on this. Once I was in Dubai on business. I was speaking at the World Trade Center there and the largest cybersecurity conference called JISEC back in 2019. I closed out the dark stage. Go get the video. And I was on the bus, you know, like you had these little hotel buses that take you, you know, around it. This was a Saturday afternoon, I had some downtime, it was taking me to the mall. So I come out of this, you know, 6-star hotel. You don't see these hotels over there. And you heard me mention before why that economy is destroyed by the Iranians who told the Americans and the Zionist project over there, fuck around and find out. Oman, Bahrain, Doha, Kuwait, Dubai, and particularly Dubai, which was running on an economy of tourism. And the Iranians sent a couple missiles into Abu Dhabi early on, and they killed the whole tourist economy over there. You can get a hotel over there, a 6-star hotel, Marriott, Hilton, for $20 a night today. Anyway, get back to my story. And this is the last story I'll tell, because I know I got some good stories. I got some real good stories. Because they're anecdotal. It's like I saw them with my own eyes. So I'm in Dubai, got some downtime, and I come out, lands to the little shuttle that takes you to the mall, Burj Khalifa. And I'm dressed up in this kind of garb, you know, just to show y'all how I get down. I get down just like they get down in Africa, because this is exactly where I got this from. And when you see Arabs in the desert, you see anybody around the world with clothes on, they got it from the Africans in the first place. We don't want to introduce clothes and suits and everything else to the world. This jalaba or jalabia, same concept. We find it all over Africa. And we didn't get it from them, they got it from us. Now, so I'm dressed like this, and I got a kufi on. I'm totally just blending in, right? Meaning I'm not from America. And I get on I'm the first one on, so I'm sitting in the back, and all of a sudden, here come 5 Black American sisters. Got the weaves and got the booty shorts, and I'm sitting back there, boy. I'm glad I'm dressed like this. Boy, Malik for the win. I'm not even associated with this stuff. And they loud, turn it up, woo woo. They get on the bus. This bus is full by now. With people from all over the world, I'm sitting on the back of it, going, boy. I got a bird's eye view, and ain't nobody looking at me saying, "Get your sisters." Mm-hmm. So they turning up. You know, they didn't go over there to learn. They didn't go over there to, you know, appreciate other cultures. Oh yeah, you'll find them before they leave. After 3 or 4 days, they're gonna take a photo op at the big mosque over there in Abu Dhabi, and where they can rent the the abayas and the hijab and whatever, and they put that stuff on social media. Let me tell you something. That's just for and literally go to the mosque and just stand around with the rest of these tourists and watch the Muslims pray. I thought that was the strangest thing I ever seen. There's more people standing around watching me pray than who are praying. I swear, I'm not lying. And it was a middle salat, it wasn't Jumu'ah or anything like that, but I was like, this is really strange. All these women dressed up in Muslim garb, some of them even the cab, where you don't see nothing but the eyes, right? And they from Brooklyn, DC, Southside Chicago, Atlanta. It's pathetic. Y'all get mad at me if you want. I got standards. I come from the last real man era. That's right.
Yep.
And I challenge the brothers just as much as I challenge the sisters to do better. We have to do better. Brothers have to do better. Brothers, Malcolm says, stand up. He's talking to the brothers. One thing says, stand up, right? Stand up and be a man. He said, get out of the welfare line. Huh? Get out of that compensation line. Stand up and be a man. He said, a real man takes care of his family, right? A real man takes care of his woman. And you don't hear on social media having arguments about who's gonna pay for dinner. 50-50 arguments. Are you out of your mind, brother? And you I want my respect, man. She's just trying to use me. Well, don't go on a date then. She be only looking for a wife anyway. I'm just gonna take her to the coffee house next time. She hit me for $200 for that steak and that scrimp. You crazy as I don't know what. Lost your mind. You see how far away we are from Malcolm, who was a Muslim Pan-Africanist, by the way. So, lastly, we will be dealing with the research of Dr. John Henry Clarke, who had a serious anti-Arab critique. He was one of our foremost historians. We also, as we deal with his anti-Arab critique, we also going to deal with the emotionalism behind that, Dr. Clarke. I mean, you know some stuff. We heard what you said about the Million Man March. I don't know where all that stuff came from, but at Minister Louis Farrakhan, but it seemed to be, laced with some emotion. Maybe Dr. Clarke, it was Dr. John Henry Clarke. It was laced with some of the emotions that you saw the rise of Minister Louis Farrakhan post Malcolm's assassination, and I had some funny feeling about that. You were in New York with Malcolm as one of his peers, a colleague of his, and somebody who Malcolm studied African history under. But Dr. Clarke, when asked, where were you when Malcolm got assassinated, February 21st, 1965, Audubon Bomb Room, you said, I was with my Jewish colleagues in Manhattan. You were some Zionists. They're the ones who opposed Malcolm. Read the works of Nelson Perlmutter, who hated Malcolm. Anti-Defamation League, Banana Breath, 1960s. Some of us are pathetic. If someone comes to me with something negative, I'm going to say, whoa, okay, I get it. I got your research, but let me see what else is going on with you. Why are you in your feelings? All right? And then once you find out, you cannot separate those two elements that I talked about with Dr. Clarke, which are true, where he said he was during the assassination of Malcolm X. When asked, his own video, go see it. Why are you hanging out with some Zionists who are plotting Malcolm's murder? They hated Malcolm. My Jewish colleagues. Anyway, we're 45 minutes into this show. I wanted to keep this short. Tune in next week. The Muslim Street will be going live across social media. When I say live, we're going live, meaning that you will see the video. We're bringing in the scholars on both sides of this issue. Dr. Obatashaka, one of my mentors, who's written some extensive work on Pan-Africanism. He writes what I think is the seminal work on Malcolm's political philosophy, the political legacy of Malcolm X, 1983. Pick a copy up of that. Go to Amazon and get it. Dr. Obatashaka, Professor Emeritus, San Francisco State University, also a key organizer in the National Black United Front during its heydays of the 80s, 90s, 2010s. When he talks about history and Muslim empires, the last 2.5 of the 3 empires in Africa prior to the European slave trade. Stop saying transatlantic slave trade. It's a European slave trade. They benefited. Were Muslim empires. The last half of the Ghanaian Empire, which preceded the Malian Empire, all Muslim. And then the Songhai Empire, moving us up to the eve of the 16th century and the beginning of the European slave trade. He says, and he uses this term, they were nominally Muslims. Mansa Musa was nominally Muslim? Nominally? What does that mean anyway? What is a nominal Muslim? Nominal Muslim. There's 5 things we do as Muslims, and I close this program out. Just for you listening to this stuff, you know how to fix it in your mind. First thing is we believe in one God. His proper name is Allah. And we believe that his last messenger out of 124,000 messages that came before him, all laced throughout Africa and everything else. And the Quran, with 75% of the Quran takes place in Africa. That's the first thing. Second thing is prayer. We pray 5 times a day. You can find Africans all over the continent. Everybody, right, this is an African concept that predates Islam. Third thing, charity. Zakat. Okay? We give our money directly to the poor. We don't give it to a preacher or an imam or Mr. Pastor so he can buy a big Cadillac. We go find the poor people. And if we don't have money to give to the poor, guess what? That money is due on us. This balances it out, right? Fourth thing is the Hajj to Mecca. During your lifetime, the fourth principle of Islam is the fast of Ramadan. During the 9th month of the Muslim calendar, this is when the first verses of the Quran were revealed from the angel Jibril from Allah to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As such, we fast during the hours from dawn to sunset. Not sun up to sundown. Get that out of your language. It's from dawn. When that dawn starts, it's still dark outside for at least another hour and 15 minutes or so. From dawn to sunset. When the sun sets, guess what? Look outside, and it looks a little light still. So dawn to sunset is when we fast. It's been going on for 1,400 years. The last thing is the Hajj to Mecca. During our lifetime, we should make the Hajj to Mecca. And I made the Hajj in 2005. And I remember last thing I'll say, when I came back, I gave several speeches, about the Hajj experience I was invited to give. And I remember at my very first one, I won't say who the audience was, but there was a sister who belonged to the Moorish Science. This is the Noble Drew Ali people. And she stood up. She said in the Q&A, because I like to take Q&As after I speak to get the engagement. She said, yeah, you was over there with them pale Arabs. And I said, have you been to Mecca, Medina? No. Well, I just left there, and let me tell you something. It's very, 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 very dark. I saw one brother over there who I had breakfast with. I had to have breakfast with him. He looked just like Denzel Washington. And I asked him, the reason I wanted to have breakfast with him, Abdullah, he said, see me after the Hajj, Malik, and I'll have breakfast with you. Because every time y'all come over here from America, y'all tell me I look like Denzel Washington. He wanted to get to the bottom of this. So I sat down with him. I said, the first thing I asked him over breakfast, I said, in his broken English, I asked him, I said, where did your people come from? He said, what are you talking about? He's like, I said, like, where'd y'all come from? Like Sudan somewhere? Or maybe y'all Nubian from Egypt? He was like, no, we're the original Arabs, bro. We're the first ones here. And we went over that, and we go over that when we talk a little bit more. The whole place was settled by Africans. Ibrahim, African. His wife, Hagar or Haja, African. Their son, Ismail, African. His son, Kadar, which means the black one, African. There's nobody in the Arabian Peninsula until they get there. Anyway, so we went over that. And I'm telling the sister, Lance, I said, this whole place is dark. What are you talking about? I even posted pictures of Arabs, and I wasn't like looking for, dark skin. I mean, they're everywhere. Indigenous to that place, Anyhow, you can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. Look out next week for us to banter this back and forth. An unemotional, dispassionate discourse between scholars and people who hold these positions on both sides of the issue. Okay. Again, our goal and objective is to put something in the can, several episodes that you can refer to in the future if people want to study this issue. And the only way we do that is that we cite the scholars. And, that's the best way to do that, is to cite the scholars, and I'll reach out to Dr. Obatushaka, and one of the greatest historians that we have, and one of the greatest historians that we have on indigenous African religions that predates Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This is very important, right? So get the information so that you're equipped, not to make a decision of this or that you become smarter. Right? All right. So I think kind of set that up, Lance. What do you think? Got to leave anything out?
Sounds like a wise set of programs, because it'll settle a lot of fallacies and correct a lot of things and give people a chance to sharpen their sword against your knowledge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You do have a question on the screen, even though I know you're wrapping it down.
Yeah. We'll deal with those questions when we come back next week. I want to thank Sister Sonia Cotton. If you can hold on that, Sister Sonia, for next week, because we are getting ready to close out. And thank you for your participation. And let's get away from that gotcha kind of attitude. It's not gonna work. Lance, it's really not. We really want a kind of academic understanding. We will deal with the question that I think is, and I will pose to the Muslim scholars of this question, which I think the identity, at least the historical identity of Bilal, who was the Muhajirin, the one who called the prayer during the time of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, over 14 years ago. When he talked to Black Americans, they go, he was from Ethiopia. He never stepped foot in Ethiopia, which was known as Abyssinia at the time. No. He's born in Mecca. Oh yeah, okay, his ties to Ethiopia or Abyssinia, because they call Bilal a Ethiopian slave. I'm like, he never. I mean, so, his mother, who was caught up in the Arab slave trade. She was a princess in Abyssinia, and she ends up in Arab in Arabia as a slave. I said, okay, so now we're tracing lineage through moms. When does that happen? It doesn't happen yesterday in what is now the Arab Peninsula or on the African continent. The lineage is always traced through the father. Well, who was his father? Bilal. And where was he born at? Mecca. So his father's an Arab, black, and all of a sudden, this whole idea that everybody black is a slave is crazy, and we're gonna go after that. We're gonna go after the understanding of the Trans-Saharan and East African trade through the lens of Dr. Du Bois and as well as J.A. Rogers. Du Bois characterizing the latter as predatory Arab and Swahili involvement in the interior slave trade as secondary, disruptive, definitely, and results driven heavily by external markets demands like Western and American demand for ivory and slaves. That Western demand on ivory and particularly slave ties into capitalism and labor and what is going on in the West, particularly during the Industrial Revolution and come up, which led to the American Revolution here and their response to the Industrial Revolution. This is heavy stuff. And you ain't gonna get by looking at no video on YouTube. We're also going to look at it from a perspective of the lens of J.A. Rogers and the racial mixing and fluidity as it relates to what came out on the other side of that. J.A. Rogers focuses heavily on the breakdown of rigid color lines. This is where that whole issue of color and culture gets mixed up in Sudan. I literally was in the Sudan back in 2007 for nearly a month. And I live with these people. And they look like, every Black American that was on the south side of Chicago. So I had some intimate conversations with them about this. I remember on the way out of my hotel, I turned to a young sister in her late 20s, Muslim, Sudanese, bone and bone, and I asked her just a question because I'd been there, a month, so they were very familiar with me. And I asked her, I said, "What does Sudan mean?" And she raised up her fist and she said, "Land of the blacks." She considers herself Arab. If you asked her, she would say, "I'm Arab." And then there's a question of the Nubians. Who through adaptation we should have a Nubian scholar on. Particularly, there's one by the name of Salih Usman from Sudan, who runs an organization called a Nubian Village, who will give the historical perspective on her people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do. And I swear I meant for this to be like, 15 or 20 minutes, just kind of setting up next week. And I see we at the end of the hour. I am Malik Aziz, editor-in-chief of the Muslim Street for Lance Scurv, who produces the Muslim Street out of Accra, Ghana, and also my co-host, Art Mobley of .423, and also a founding member of the National Association of Journalists. We will see you next week, and we will continue episode 2 of the debate on Afrocentric propaganda versus Islam. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.